Hello everyone and Happy New Year! It is time for the 2023 lists and we're gonna start with my top 20 EPs of 2023. Yeah, this was a pretty decent year when it came to small and short releases, and there are 20 of them that I do recommend to you. But first, before we get into that, let's get into 5 honorable mentions first. So, at first is Majora's Knocnaria. I don't know how to really pronounce this, but yeah, I can definitely see the hype behind this EP. This is a well-performed and well-produced post-rock and jazz rock EP, and with some really impressive stuff right here. Next is the brand new EP from Limewax. I mean, it's Limewax, one of the most legendary darkster producers. Another recent work that is a bit all over the place, the track Rare Beat, getting closer to the usual old school Limewax sound, is the biggest highlight by far, but still it's decent as a whole thing. Next is Kevlar Money Bags by Germ and Sakewell, a very solid collaboration with those two still keeping the appeal of the more dark and aggressive trap sound that they've been known for all of those years. Ben Frost and Francesco Farbes follow up their album that came out this year as well with an EP containing more recordings that showcase Nature's Wrath. And finally, at the honorable mentions, we have the short mixtape by d.Silvestre, wacky Brazilian producer that makes heavily distorted beats, not for everyone, but that's Brazilian funk like you've never thought of before. And now, getting into the list, at number 20, we start off with Better Lovers, God Made Me an Animal. A collaboration between members of Every Time I Die and Dillinger Escape Plan certainly sounds quite promising, and these 4 tracks certainly deliver. Quite imaginative metalcore release with a couple of mathcore structures and pretty energetic overall. At number 19 is The Way Through All Things by Orphs. If you're looking for a non-stop, blood-pumping industrial techno release perfectly designed for dark electro parties, then look no further than this, you're going to be pleased. Number 18 is the new Aphex Twin EP, which, outside of the amazing Black Box live recorder, it's a mostly standard sound for recent Aphex Twin releases, nothing particularly out there. Not that it needs to, it's still quite enjoyable, just don't expect something mind-blowing after all of those years. At number 17 is Devil Music by Portrayer of Guilt. This is a very interesting release conceptually, as on one hand you have 5 black metal songs with lots of avant-garde elements, a direction I didn't expect from them, but actually works pretty fine and making for a pleasant surprise. And then the second half is the same songs but as chamber music versions, which in a weird way also works. Unexpected release coming from the band, very interesting and refreshing, and with some cool ideas throughout. Number 16 is Crypt of Ancestral Knowledge, the new EP of Wolves of the Throne Room, which contains a pretty standard direction of atmospheric black metal, at least in the first 2 tracks. The second half focuses on 2 dungeon synth and dark folk moments, which in my opinion ended up being a little bit more interesting. Digging the approach of this new project, it's one of the better works I've heard from Wolves in the Throne Room, especially in more recent years. Number 15, Rabbi My Dear's new EP combines various dark melodies with old school breaks in a breakcore / drill and bass fashion. Once again, very eccentric release where Rabbi My Dear shows his capabilities as a wacky producer. Number 14 is the debut EP of Neu-Romancer, Neu-Romantica. Very cool EDM and dark wave with a nice vintage 80s aesthetic, and also a Xenes remix that could have been better in my opinion. Nothing too crazy about this release, but for its style there are some really well executed ideas over here. At number 13 is Silent Servant with the EP In Memoriam. This EP starts with 2 incredible industrial techno tracks, with the most notable highlight being the atmospheric urban melancholic synths. The other 2 go into a more fast-paced and energetic direction of techno music that is more monotone, more straightforward, but the tracks are quite repetitive and drag this EP down a bit in my opinion. Regardless, in its melodic aspects, it's quite imaginative, with its dark aesthetic being quite on point. At number 12 is one of the most pleasant surprises of this year for me. It's My World by aespa. I've never really been into K-pop outside of very certain exceptions, but the more electropop elements of this release impressed me. For the most part, it has your standard commercial sound, as you know you're going to expect rich production and nice vocal performances, but some of the instrumentals really did it for me, and also kinda rare to say that in its majority was pretty decent, because for the most part, releases like this are full of inconsistencies in terms of moods, but yeah, this felt somewhat special for me. At number 11, we have another collaboration by drum and bass legends State of Mind and Black Sun Empire. You know that when they collab together, you're going to hear some dark, intense, and catchy neurofunk bangers. And once again, as expected, they do not disappoint, an absolute must for anyone who is looking for drum and bass release in 2023. Getting at the top 10, at number 10, we have Filthy by In Eternam Veil. A pretty lengthy set of 4 tracks going over the 30-minute mark. They're minimal and repetitive techno tracks, but the ideas and the electronics of this project are pretty imaginative. A nice throwback to a more old-school electronic sound with dark atmosphere and simplistic beats. Quite an intriguing release for 2023 in my opinion. Number 9 is Noise Girl, Japanese power noise producer making a comeback after almost 2 decades, celebrating the 25th anniversary of the project with the new EP Studio 25, and what we expect 4 insanely powerful and loud tracks with bizarre sampling and keeping the catchiness that made Disco Pathology such a classic in the scene. A strong recommendation for anyone who is looking for a more catchy but also extremely brutal noise release. Number 8 is Night Killers Volume 1 by Snow Strippers. I found the April mixtape 3 out of this year to be just decent, but it's with this new EP where I feel that they have put out some of their best material and capturing the electroclash aesthetic the best way, with the trance and hardstyle elements being implemented better than ever before in their works. The tracks could have been even more fleshed out since some of them are quite short, but overall the results are quite impressive. At number 7 is by far the most unknown release of this list, and that's by Jack in Their Box with Horsey. I very rarely talk about releases that artists themselves recommend to me to review on my channel, because 9 times out of 10 I end up not feeling satisfied with what I'm hearing. But this is not the case over here. One of the rare occasions where I'd praise a recommended release and I suggest you to go and check it out, especially if you're looking for some really out there and unsettling power electronics with spoken word. These two can go hand in hand, but the theatrical and performative approach alongside with the effects and the electronics makes for a pretty unique, wacky and experimental release that fans of more obscure stuff should give a shot. At number 6 is Stereo Nova, my favorite Greek electronic duo, returning with a new EP, Erida. While the self-titled track with Yotari threw me off at first, it grew on me as a sound at least, but it saves the best at the second half, with tracks like Tuna having an incredible twisted dark attitude, while also keeping their catchy elements and creative use of their sounds. This EP keeps the more modern and glitch approach that we saw with their comeback full-length album Uranos, and this is a solid continuation of this formula. Once again, Stereo Nova never ceased to amaze me. Number 5 is Dance Music for DJs by M.O.O.N. Considering my disappointment out of the album he did last year, I got into this new EP with zero expectations, and while this approach to electronic music is different than what I'm used to from him, I was really amazed by the final result. These are 4 really groovy and insanely catchy electronic and techno tracks with imaginative use of sampling and overall a really fun listen. Not what I expected necessarily, but certainly what I wanted. A very compelling dance release for 2023. At number 4 is Succubus by Cobra. If you count that the irritating starter 10 out of 10, the rest of the EP is phenomenal. When I first stumbled upon Cobra, I got obsessed by her hedonistic attitude and the awesome dark and punchy house beats. This EP is more of the same, but it's just so good at what it does. The instrumentals are some of the most dynamic so far, fitting nicely with the nasty deliveries of Cobra, which once again is filled with sexual tension. Really digging this release and looking forward to more. Number 3 is one of my greatest discoveries from this year. This is How Was That For You by Larry. I found this out of nowhere and I liked the album cover, and I was interested by the genre tags, so I decided to give it a shot, and I was amazed by it. This is a minimal drum and bass release filled with dark, eerie and haunting atmospheres. So it's mostly like a dark ambient project with mostly monotone drone passages that incorporates various futuristic sounds and beats. It is very good in its execution, the overall production is solid, it sounds great, and yeah, overall, a very pleasant surprise for me this year. At number 2 is Currents by Koji. Easily my favorite work from them after all of those years that I've been familiar with their music. Kind of a departure from the more uplifting older stuff. This more melancholic and ethereal approach of progressive house and future garage is absolutely superb. After not really feeling some of the newer directions, now I'm really looking forward to more like this, because this is some of the best electronic and dance stuff I've heard in the past couple of years. 4 tracks filled with beauty, in which I'm hoping for more similar approaches, because this is a huge step up from everything else they've put out so far. And finally, at number 1, it's a pretty obvious choice. It's going to be Let's Hope Heteros Fail, Learn and Retire by Alice Longyugao. I wasn't expecting to listen to anything similar to this at all. This is one of the most refreshing and most unique projects I've heard all year. And it's not just impressive from Alice Longyugao standards, but for music in general, there's an amazing blend of so many sounds, from trap to hyperpop to alternative metal, and that's only scratching the surface. And even if it sounds like this is gonna be such a mess, everything in this EP is surprisingly cohesive. All of the blends and transitions fit so perfectly. Prior to this, I was thinking of Alice as another intriguing and promising hyperpop artist, but this is an outstanding progress, exceeding all of my expectations. A release filled and packed with so much quality material in a quite short period of time that manages to go beyond what we have on hyperpop as an idea. It becomes its own thing, it's out there, and I've never heard some of those genre blends before and actually working so well. At this point, I'm super excited to see what Alice is going to do in the future, because this is one of a kind experience. And that is gonna be with my top 20 EPs of 2023. What were your favorite EPs out of this year? Let me know down in the comments. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video, subscribe for more content like this. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video. Goodbye.